Welcome back. You're watching Newsnight on eNCA. Now, the retail motor industry reportedly contributes 2% to the country's gross domestic product and employs 300,000 people. The industry believes these figures can be increased, and they are looking to the government to help them achieve this through favorable legislation. I'm now joined by Ipeleng Mabusela, CEO of Strategy and Corporate Support for the Retail Motor Industry Organization, to get into the finer details of the challenges and opportunities in the sector. Good evening to you, sir. Thank you very much for your time and joining us here on Newsnight.
Good evening, Abigail. Thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. So we saw the swearing in of the new cabinet earlier this week. You are hoping to engage with multiple ministers to touch on issues facing the motor industry. Talk to us about what some of the major red flags and challenges currently are in the sector.
Absolutely. So as you've mentioned, I mean, the RMI is part of the automotive aftermarket, and therefore that's the part of the sector that we'll be looking at. A fantastic opportunity with, new blood within some of the cabinet ministers, and we congratulate them on that. Good opportunity to collaborate for certain issues, one of them being skills, big skills shortage within the sector, others being labor piece and so forth. With Department of Employment and Labor, we have good relations with them in the past, hope to continue to do so in the future as well. And then finally, the final issue around some legislation with Department of Transport as well that we need to deal with. So good opportunity to also create jobs. We represent 8,500 SMMEs within the automotive sector. Very small businesses, some of them 3-4 man employees and so forth. So how do we work together to build that employee base and drive economic growth?
It always baffles me that we have a huge and ongoing unemployment crisis in the country, but there are so many sectors that require skilled individuals to come through, because it seems the opportunity and the job potential is there, but we struggle when it comes to upskilling young people and people in general on the continent. Why are we struggling when it comes to being able to skill workers and provide them with these thousands of jobs that very so often in conversation are said to be there?
Absolutely. So there's a bit of a disconnect sometimes between what's being taught within the various, TVET colleges and so forth versus what's required in the sector. So you have to find some sort of good alignment there. Maybe a shift away from technical to more vocational training, which is more hands-on training, aligning the curriculum with what's required. For example, we work with, some entities abroad that do electric vehicle type of training, and we train the lecturers to train the students and so forth. So that's a good opportunity there as well. We're also working with Mesita on a short skills program to help bridge the gap between the skills that are needed in the sector versus what's happening on the ground. So there's definitely room for opportunity and to be able to absorb some of that talent within the sector as well.
Another issue that you've mentioned is the reclassification of accident vehicles. That's very interesting, because as a driver, you would want to know the history of a vehicle that you are purchasing. Is that not standard in our country? What are the challenges
in our country. We want to work with Department of Transport in particular on that one. They did promulgate that legislation 10 years ago, but haven't really implemented it. And what we're trying to do is to say, from it's called the Vehicle Salvage Database, to get a sense and a feel for what's the types of accidents, and there's got various codes for those vehicles, what's happened to that vehicle, what's the history of that vehicle, so that you and I have got the transparency and the know to see what's happening and to make informed decisions as well.
Of course.
We have been trying to work with the South African Insurers Association, SAIA, to get that off the ground, but to no avail. So hoping that we can use legislation to sort of push that through. So that
there's also something titled periodic vehicle testing. Talk to us about what that entails and why that's not happening currently.
That's the one where there's been 10 years worth of legislation already approved but not implemented. On a global level, studies show that you're able to show a correlation between a decrease in road fatalities and you and I being, essentially prompted to test our vehicles on a regular basis. So, for example, on an annual basis, we should be getting our cars tested for, mechanical issues as well as electrical issues to ensure that we don't cause unintended accidents on our roads. It can save a lot of lives, and I think it's quite important. So we're keen to get implementation of this off the ground with the Department of Transport.
When you engage, what are the reasons for the the tardiness in implementation? Why do we have these policies, but we aren't seeing them being implemented?
Yeah, I think there's been quite a bit of a reluctance, perhaps a little bit of a concern about what will the public say about this additional thing. Now you have to do your license disc, and you also have to get the vehicle physically tested. But we can use technologies and various platforms to try to solve those challenges and make it easy for you and I to get our vehicles tested. So we're hoping with the new blood, with the new Department of Transport Minister, that we can find each other and sort of take this forward.
We hope so. Just in conclusion, let's talk a little bit about illicit trade in this sector. Is it something that plagues the sector? Also, as a driver, you want to make sure that when you order a part, this is an approved part. Are we making sure that that's happening in the country? What sort of measures are in place?
We do have quite a challenge with illicit trade, Abigail, with importing of parts that are not on the right standard. Not only that, you would have heard also about people changing or adulterating fuel. When you put fuel in your car, that is not the correct, chemical composition of the fuel, which can cause damage, mechanical failure, and ultimately possibly accidents. So we're hoping legislation will take quite a bit of time to resolve that, but we want to have an industry compliance forum with the Department of Minerals and Petroleum, for example, the DTIC, to find a way to put some sort of guidelines in place as a start, and then we can take that forward.
If you had the opportunity to sit down with the newly appointed Transport Minister, Barbara Creecy, what would you say? What would you ask for? What's at the top of your list?
The wish list, I would say, look, good opportunity for us to start anew. Let's implement the periodic vehicle testing. Let's use the stats and the data on a global level that's already done. We can do that. 2, let's find a way to make sure that we do have the transparency we need about when I'm buying a used vehicle, where has it been? Was it a rebuilt vehicle, or was it just a minor accident damage? And that'll help the likes of us make much better and more informed decisions.
Fantastic. Very interesting conversation, Mr. Mabusela. Thank you for your time and sharing your insights.
Thank you so much, Abigail.